Great. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our next guest. This is the wrap-up stage of Late on a Friday, so I applaud your stick-to-itiveness in being able to stick around for this long day. But I got to say, I hope you share my enthusiasm for all that we've had going on today. I really think it's an amazing combination of an important and challenging set of issues, really emotional stories, really ones that can appeal and understand to us all, and then really some amazing intellectual firepower that was able to put together analysis and ideas on how to address some of these questions. So I really have been very thrilled with all that has gone on today. And in particular, I think we've been able to address some of the challenging questions around looking at our First Amendment, new ways that technology is being abused, and some technological challenges to investigating and prosecuting some of this conduct. So really, I hope that you've got a lot out of it, and I thank you for all of your participation here today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, number 2 at the FBI. Andrew McCabe served as Acting Director of the FBI from May 9 until August 2nd of this year. Following his time in this position, he's now resumed his previous role as Deputy Director, overseeing all FBI domestic and international investigative and intelligence activities. Mr. McCabe joined the FBI as a special agent in 1996. He began his career in New York, where he investigated and supervised organized crime matters. And during the course of his career, he has held leadership positions in a wide variety of different parts of the FBI, including the Counterterrorism Division, the National Security Branch, the Washington Field Office, and also as the Associate Deputy Director. So please join me in welcoming Director Andrew McCabe.
Good afternoon. And I'll pause just for a moment to give them time to load my 50-page PowerPoint deck. No, I'm not going to do that. I will, though, start by addressing the burning question that I'm sure is on all of your minds and might distract you from my comments if I don't answer it first. And that is, what is that odd thing on his hand? I broke my arm last week or 2 weeks ago in a mountain biking accident, so complete stupidity. Apparently I'm not 20 anymore, and so I have to wear this somewhat ridiculous-looking brace. So got that one off the table right from the beginning. So again, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I know we are very late in a long week, and I'm sure you've heard many things today, so I'm going to keep my comments very brief. I thought I would just touch on a few things that we think are particularly important as we think about cyber issues and particularly cyber crime issues, some of the things that we've been emphasizing to our own folks lately and some of the challenges that we continue to face. And at the conclusion of those remarks, I'm happy to take questions. So if you have any questions, think about those as I go. So let's talk a little bit about cyber in general. Cyber is, of course, one of the FBI's highest priorities, but it's almost hard to describe it as a priority. Our number one priority continues to be the prevention of a terrorist attack here in the United States or against U.S. interests anywhere, followed shortly after by our counterintelligence responsibilities and then cyber. But cyber is truly the thing that connects all of the work that we do across all of our operational programs. When we look at counterintelligence, it is impossible these days to divide cyber and counterintelligence as separate programs. Certainly our most concerning CI adversaries are also those who are most accomplished and adept at attacking us in the cyber realm. So the overlap between cyber and CI is obvious. In the counterterrorism world, we have for many years spent time addressing our CT threats in the cyber realm. Our CT adversaries' use of internet facilities to communicate, to plan operations, most importantly, to connect with potential operatives and adherents and supporters, to push incredibly professional and effective propaganda to those folks that they would like to draw into their philosophy of death and violence has been extraordinary to watch over the last 10 years and continues to this day. And finally, of course, in our criminal programs. Cyber, you can't be, for example, an effective drug investigator without an ability to conduct social media analysis. If you want to understand how our criminal actors are planning, are interacting with each other, to shed light on those networks that we find to be the most effective way to address serious and significant criminal activity, you have to be able to understand and utilize cyber techniques, right? Because that's how people communicate nowadays. It would be like trying to make an organized crime case without an understanding of toll records. Well, toll records are wildly less significant to us today. Today it's about social media. It's about more and more, of course, encrypted applications in which we have a harder and harder time understanding how our subjects are communicating. So cyber really touches everything we do. But focusing, as I know you have over the course of the conference, on cyber crime, there's really 4 things I'd like to highlight in terms of how we think about cyber. And the first, I would say, is the priority or the importance that we put on cyber crimes. I think it's not the work that we do that attracts the most attention. And so I think that sometimes people think that we spend less time or have less of a focus on it or dedicate fewer resources to it. And that, of course, is not true. I think the best example of that recently has been the case that in which we've charged Michael Cotter for his alleged activity phoning in threats to Jewish community centers and other entities and businesses across the country and, of course, as we know now, across the world. The Cotter investigation was particularly challenging. Cotter is a very sophisticated cyber actor in terms of his understanding and utilization of different forms of technology. It is one in which we had several field offices, multiple divisions at FBI headquarters, and of course we enjoyed great participation and partnership from our colleagues in Israel. But that's a lot of people and a lot of time. And we got a couple of breaks in that case that enabled us to bring it to a conclusion in a period of time that I think we were all surprised that we were able to successfully stop that activity. But I think it stands as a good example of exactly the lengths we will go to address actors who commit crimes exclusively in cyberspace. The second thing I'd like to point towards is a lesson that we have learned at the FBI again and again in the criminal world, in the CT world, more frequently now in the CI world, and that is the importance of partnerships. I grew up in the FBI doing organized crime work on a task force in New York City, task force with the NYPD, doing Russian organized crime work. We have learned time and time again. Look at the example of our JTTFs. We had, I think, 35 JTTFs on September 11th. We have over 100 now across the country. We are better together. We're stronger together. We see that particularly now in the cyber realm. You look at cyber crimes. If we look just at our violent crimes against children program, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 400 agents that work just violent crimes against children across the country. They are augmented by almost 800 additional task force officers. And we haven't even begun to talk about the number of state, local, and tribal police officers who conduct investigations of cyber criminal activity every day. We have got to be able to tap into that resource, not only as a force multiplier, but because it is likely that our partners will find out about instances of cybercrime before we do. So if you take, for example, the case of Buster Hernandez, who has been charged with perpetuating cyber stalking crimes against young women in the suburbs of Indianapolis, crimes which he perpetrated from his home in Bakersfield, California. We learned about Hernandez from the Brownsburg Police Department in one of those Indianapolis suburbs. So without the ability to build those sorts of partnerships on an effective level where our state and local detectives and police officers are picking up the phone and calling into our task forces with new information and new cases, we won't be effective against those operators. And the partnerships don't end on the law enforcement level, right? So of course with our We've spent a lot of time in the last few years really trying to develop better and more productive relationships with our private sector partners, both because there again, they are oftentimes the victims whose reports we rely on to find out where we need to be looking, but also because more and more we rely on the private sector to develop those tools and techniques that will enable us to succeed in the cyber realm. The third thing I'd point out to you is really just the importance of working with victims. Cyber crimes are the ones that are hard to get your hands around oftentimes, and they are ones that people are, like sexual offenses and child predator offenses, they are ones that people are many, many times, for obvious reasons, reluctant to report. And this only highlights the importance of publicizing and communicating those successes that we are having in the cyber realm. Because each Buster Hernandez, each Michael Cotter gives us the opportunity to communicate to the communities that we are making a difference. We are dedicated to this work to try to encourage folks to step forward, to step out of the shadows, and let us know what's happened to them. And finally, of course, the challenges we have with technology, which are similar to those challenges we face across all of our operational programs. The issues that we frequently and others refer to as going dark. And that is quite simply the condition that there is an ever-increasing space in this country in which a space that is beyond the reach of lawful court orders by virtue of technological developments. And so we as a nation need to think about whether that is a good thing for us. And I know that is a highly charged conversation. There are compelling arguments on all sides. And our role in that conversation is not to weigh in as decider, but it is important that we step in and are able to shed some light on what that increasing dark space is doing to our ability to combat things like cybercrime. Year to date, we have received over 11,000 devices that we have been requested to assist state, local, tribal agencies, and some of those from our own investigations, of course, that we've been asked to assist with lawful process in opening to divine evidence of criminal activity. In less than half of those cases, we are successful in obtaining that information. And that is a number that is growing day by day. So it's a question we have to ask ourselves as a society. Is this something that we are comfortable with? I'll tell you, it's a new concept. There is not physical space in the United States of America that is beyond the reach of lawful court orders. This is a very different sort of space. It impacts different and unique privacy interests, which must be addressed. But we have to determine whether or not, at what point are we comfortable with accepting a law enforcement community that is less effective and less able to respond to those instances, those cyber crimes, whatever they may be, cyber stalking, crimes against children, kidnappings, you name it. You all understand where that can go as well as I do. So that is one of the major challenges that we face in the cyber crimes area. So with that, I am happy to take any questions that you might have. I know it's late on Friday. Your question might be, can I leave now? If that's the case, yes, you can. I'm not requiring you to stay at all. Not one question about Hillary Clinton's email? Okay. All right, then. I won't answer it. Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate not only your presence here late on a Friday, but your dedication to this area. This is hard work. Richard and I were talking before we came in. One of those things that I am so concerned about our folks who work cyber is they have kind of a dual responsibility of not only working these compelling and challenging cases, but trying to stay on top of the ever-changing and developing technology as they do. So it's a tough area to dedicate yourself to. I appreciate that attention and that dedication. We need good thoughts and productive conversations in this area. So thank you for participating in that, and have a great weekend.
I'm very disappointed. No questions. You have the Deputy Director of the FBI here at your beck and call, but no questions. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It really was wonderful to have such a wonderful audience, and I hope that you enjoyed and got a lot out of all of our presentations here today. I want to extend special thanks to the University of Maryland Law School and Professor Citron for being able to co-host with us, and to particularly Frank and Anita, who've been doing so much work behind the scenes to get everything ready. And to all of the staff, and I'm sure I'm missing names, but thank you so much. With that, I will close the day. Have a safe travel home, and I look forward to seeing you perhaps at future CSIP symposia as we progress to another one next year. So thanks very much.